Pahlavi text, translated by E.W. West, Part 1, the Bundahis Bahman Yast, and Shayast la Shayast, Sacred Books of the East, Oxford Press, 1860. We are continuing the Bundahis introduction. 4. On the opposition of the two spirits, that is, in what manner the archfiends have come spiritually in opposition to the celestial angels. 10 pages, see chapter 5 for 2 of the middle pages. And we are talking about the space in TD that these chapters are occupied. 5 on the waging of the conflict, Ardik, of the creations of the world, encountering the evil spirit, 1 page, see chapter 6. The second conflict the water waged, 3 pages, see chapter 7. 7. The third conflict the earth waged, 1 page, see chapter 8. 8. The fourth conflict the plants waged, half a page, see chapter 9. 9. The fifth conflict the primeval ox waged, 1/3 page, see chapter 10. 10. The sixth conflict Guillomard waged, 1 1/3 page. 11. The seventh conflict the fire waged, 1/3 page. 12. The eighth conflict the constellations waged, 1/3 page. 13. The ninth conflict the celestial angels waged with the evil spirit, 3 lines. 14. 10th. The stars practiced non-intermeddling. Agu McGisson, half a page. 15. On the species of those creations, 2 1/3 pages. 16. On the nature of lands, 1 1/3 page, see chapter 11. 17. On the nature of mountains, 4 1/2 pages, see chapter 12. 18. On the nature of seas, 2 1/2 pages, see chapter 13. 19. On the nature of rivers, 5 1/3 pages, see chapters 20 and 21. 20. On the nature of lakes, 1 1/4 page, see chapter 22. 21. On the nature of the 5 classes of animals, 5 1/3 pages, see chapter 14. 22. On the nature of men, 7 1/2 pages, see chapter 15. 23. On the nature of generation of every kind, 5 pages, see chapter 16. 24. On the nature of plants, 3 1/2 pages, see chapter 27. 25. On the chieftainship of men and animals and every single thing, 2 1/3 pages, see chapter 24. 26. On the nature of fire, 4 2/3 pages, see chapter 17. 27. On the nature of sleep, 2 1/3 pages. 28. On the nature of wind and cloud and rain, 9 2/3 pages. 29. On the nature of noxious creatures, 4 1/2 pages. 30. On the nature of the wolf species, 2 pages. 31. On things of every kind that are created by the spirits, and the opposition which came upon them, 7 3/4 pages, see chapters 18 and 19. 32. On the religious year, 4 pages, see chapters 25 and 26. 33. On the great exploits of the celestial angels, 17 1/2 pages. 34. On the evil doing of Aharman and the demons, 7 pages, as in chapters 28. 35. On the body of man and the opinion of the world, 7 pages. 36. On the spiritual chieftainship of the regions of the earth, 3 1/2 pages, as in chapter 29. 37. On the Kinvad bridge and the souls of the departed, 5 2/3 pages. 38. On the celebrated provinces of the country of Iran, the residence of the Kyans, 5 pages. 39. On the calamities of various millenniums happening to the country of Iran, 8 2/3 pages. 40. On the resurrection and future existence, 6 2/3 pages, see chapter 30. 41. On the race and offspring of the Kyans, 8 2/3 pages, as in chapters 31 to 33. 42. On the computation of years of the Arabs, 2 1/4 pages, see chapter 34. And I can't help but think that some of the numbers that they chose in composing these things would have been symbolic. Comparing the list of contents with the text in K20 as published in Westergaard's lithographed Facsimile edition, it appears that TD contains not only 15 extra chapters, but also very much additional matter in the chapters corresponding to chapters 1, 2, 5, 16, 28, and 31 of the translation in this volume, and smaller additions to those corresponding to chapters 3, 4, 15, 17, and 34. The arrangement of the chapters in TD is also much more methodical than in the Indian manuscript, especially with regard to chapters 20, 21, 22, and 27, which evidently occupy their proper position in TD, and so far as chapter 20 is concerned, this arrangement is confirmed by the insertion of its first sentence between chapters 13 and 14 in the Indian manuscripts, which indicates that the whole chapter must have been in that position in some older copy. In fact, the Indian manuscript must probably be now regarded as merely as collections of extracts from the original work. This has long been suspected from the fragmentary character of the text they contain, but it could hardly be proved until a more complete text had been discovered. Whether TD may be considered as a copy of the text as it stood originally, or merely of an after recension of the work, can hardly be determined with certainty until the whole contents of the manuscript have been carefully examined. It is, therefore, to be hoped that its owner will be induced to publish a lithograph facsimile of the whole after the manner of Westergaard's edition, so far as appears in the lengthy and valuable extracts with which he has kindly favored me. No decided difference of style can be detected between the additional matter and the text hitherto known, nor any inconsistencies more striking than such as sometimes occur in the Indian manuscript. On the other hand, it will be noticed that a heading, number 25, in the list of contents seems to be misplaced, which is an argument against the text being in its original state, and the style of the Bundahis is so much less involved and obscure than that of the selections of the Zadsparam, see the appendix to the Bundahis, which treat of some of the same subjects, that it may be fairly suspected of having been written originally in a different age, but the writer of the text, as it appears in TD, calls Zadsparam one of his contemporaries. See chapter 33, 10, 11 of the translation. It may therefore be suspected that he merely re-edited an old text with some additions of his own, which, however, are rather difficult to distinguish from the rest. No stress can be laid upon peculiarities of orthography in TD, as they are, in all likelihood, attributable to copyists long subsequent to Zadsparam's contemporaries. Any future translator of the Bundahis will probably have to take the text in TD as the nearest accessible approach to the original work, but the present translation is based, as heretofore, upon the text in K20, corrected in many places from M6, but with due care not to adopt readings which seem due to the illegibility of the original from which M6 was copied, as already explained in chapters 28, 29, 31, 32, and 33. However, TD has been taken as a principal authority merely checked by K20, and having its additional passages carefully indicated, and in chapter 31, K20b has also been consulted. Since the present translation was printed, any lingering doubts as to the genuineness of the text in TD have been in great measure dissipated by the discovery that a small fragment of an old manuscript of the Bundahis, which has long been in Europe, is evidently a portion of a text of similar character to TD, and of exactly the same extent. This small fragment consists of 2 folios belonging to an old manuscript brought from Persia by the late Professor Westergaard in 1843 to 1844, and which is evidently the codex mentioned by him in the preface to his Zend Avesta, page 8, note 3. These 2 folios, which are numbered 130 and 131 in Persian words, now form the commencement of this old mutilated manuscript, of which the first 129 folios have been lost. They contain very little more than 1 page of the Bundahis text, namely the last sentences of the last chapter corresponding to Bundahis 34, 7-9, followed by a colophon occupying less than 2 pages. This fragment of the text contains some additional details not found in the Indian manuscript, as well as a few other variations of no great importance. It may be translated as follows. Some words missing. Saham was in those reigns of Auzobo Kavad and Manuskihar, Ka'i Ka'us, till his going to the sky, 75 years, and after that 75 years, altogether 150 years, Ka'i Kusrobo, 60 years, Ka'i Loharasp, 120 years, Ka'i Vistasp, till the coming of the religion, 30 years, total more 1,000 years. Then the millennium reign came to Capricornus and Zoroastrianist, the Spitaman, with tidings. Pet Kambari, from the creator Uharmazd, came to King Vistasp, and Vistasp was king after receiving the religion 90 years. So this metaphor of the afterlife as the heavens is here, but the millennium reign of Capricornus, are we in the age of Aquarius now? So 11 ages ago, 2160 years apiece. Bohuman, son of Spendad, 112 years. Humai, daughter of Bohuman, 30 years. Darai, son of Kiharazad, that is, of the daughter of Bohuman, 12 years. Darai, son of Darai, 14 years. And Alexander Meruman, 14 years. The Askanians should bear the title in an uninterrupted sovereignty 200 and so many years, and Artakshatar, son of Papak, and the number of Sasanians bear it 460 years until the withering Arabs obtained a place as far as the year 447 of the Persians. Now it is the Persian year 527. The colophon which follows states that the manuscript was finished on the 13th day of the 9th month, AY 936, 1567 of the Common Era, and was written by Mitro Apan, son of Anoshak, Urban, son of Rustam. This manuscript is therefore of nearly the same age as TD, but there has been no opportunity of collating the fragment of it, which is still extant, with the corresponding portion of TD, that it was a manuscript of the same character as TD, that is, one containing the same text as K20, but with much additional matter, appears clearly from the fragment translated above regarding its original extent. It is possible to make an approximate estimate by calculating the quantity of text which the 129 lost folios must have contained from the quantity actually existing on folio 130. According to this calculation, the original extent of the text of the Bundahis in this manuscript must have been very nearly 30,000 words, and it is remarkable that a similar calculation of the extent of the text in TD based upon the actual contents of 10 folios out of 103 gives precisely the same result. This coincidence is a strong argument in favor of the absolute identity of the text lost from Westergaard's manuscript with that actually existing in TD. It shows further that the original extent of the Bundahis may now be safely estimated at 30,000 words instead of the 13,000 contained in K20 when that manuscript was complete. That this fragment belonged to a separate manuscript and is not the folio missing from the end of TD is shown not only by its containing more of the text than is said to be missing, but also by the first folio of the fragment being numbered instead of 103, and by its containing 15 lines to the page instead of 17, as would be necessary in order to correspond with TD. Regarding the age of the Bundahis, many opinions have been hazarded, but as they have been chiefly based upon minute details of supposed internal evidence evolved from each writer's special misinterpretation of the text, it is unnecessary to detail them. The only indication of its age can be fairly obtained from the internal evidence is that the text of the Bundahis could not have been completed in its present form until after the Islamic conquest of Persia. Of course, in 5 instances, that was not what happened because it was a war of conquest in 5 cities or towns or whatever, according to the record. The rest of it was what, 651 of the Common Era. This is shown not only by the statements that the sovereignty went to the Arabs chapter 34:9, that now through the invasion of the Arabs, they, the Negroes, are again diffused through the country of Iran, chapter 23:3, and that whoever keeps the year by the revolution of the moon mingles summer with winter and winter with summer, 25:19, referring probably to the Islamic year not corresponding with the seasons, because it slips, 10, 11 days each year versus the solar calendar. But also, more positively, by the following translation of an extract from chapter 39 in TD. And when the sovereignty came to Yazdakard, he exercised sovereignty 20 years, and then the Arabs rushed into the country of Iran in great multitude. Yazdakard did not prosper. La Sakafto in warfare with them, and went to Khurasan and Turkestan to seek horses, men, and assistance, and was slain by them there. The son of Yazdakard went to the Hindus and fetched an army of champions. Before it came conducted into Khurasan, that army of champions dispersed. The country of Iran remained with the Arabs, and their own irreligious law was propagated by them, and many ancestral customs were destroyed, which is not something that Islamic law would have allowed. Destroying the religion of the Mazdayistians was weakened, and washing of corpses, burial of corpses, and eating of dead matter were put in practice. I don't know why they would think that. Islam does not allow eating of carrion. From the original creation until this day, evil more grievous than this has not happened, for through their evil deeds on account of want, foreign habits, and hostile acts, bad decrees, and bad religion, ruin, want, and other evils have taken lodgment. One of the things that happened during the conquest is people were reluctant to take on Persian habits, not because of religion, but because, Arab ways, right? And some they change because, the housing and clothing and stuff like that is standards of modesty are not the same thing as what you need for different climates. None of these passages could have been written before the Islamic conquest, but the writer or editor of the text as it appears in TD supplies the means of approximating much more closely to the date of his work in a passage in chapter 41 of TD in which he mentions the names of several of his contemporaries, chapter 33, verse 10 and 11. Among these, as already noticed, he mentions Zad Sparham, son of Udanyam, who must have been the writer of the selections of Zad Sparham, a translation of which is added as an appendix to the Bundahis in this volume. The writer was the brother of Manoskihar, son of Udanyam, who wrote the Dadastan Dinik, and from colophons found in certain manuscripts of the Dadastan, which will be more particularly described in the next section of this introduction. It appears that this Manoskihar was high priest of Pars and Kirman in AY 250, 881 of the Common Era. This date may therefore be taken as a very close approximation to the time at which the Bundahis probably assumed the form we find in TD, but that manuscript, having been written about 650 years later, can hardly have been copied direct from the original. Whether that original was merely a new edition of an older Pahlavi work, as may be suspected from the simplicity of its language, or whether it was first translated for the most part from the Avesta of the Damdadnask in the 9th century, we have no means of determining with certainty. Judging, however, from chapter 1, verse 1, the original Bundahis probably ended with the account of the resurrection, chapter 30, and the extra chapters containing genealogical and chronological details, matters not mentioned in chapter 1:1, together with all allusions to the Arabs, were probably added by the revising editor in the 9th century. The last, or chronological chapter, may even have been added at a later date. You might also say, because this was the Talmudic period too, that was also an influence of what they were doing, because they were thinking about, what's commentaries and other stuff related to the Bible, and they didn't relate it to the Bible, but you know what I mean, because the genealogies and all that. A Gugurati edition, or rather paraphrase of the Bundahis, was published in 1819 by Adal Dorab Jamshed Jamasp Asa, and a revised edition of it was published by Peshustan Rustam in 1877. In the preface to the latter edition, it is stated that the translator made use of two manuscripts, one being a copy of a manuscript written in Iran, AY 776, by Rustamji Meherwanji Margban Shehrar, and the other manuscript written in India by Dastur Jamshedji Jamaspji in AY 1139. It is also mentioned that he was 4 years at work upon his translation. The editor of the new edition states that he has labored to improve the work by collecting all the further information that he could find on the various subjects and many other Pahlavi works. The result of all this labor is not so much a mere translation of the Bundahis as a larger work upon the same subject, or a paraphrase more methodically arranged, as may be seen from the following summary of its contents. The headings of the 59 chapters which form the first part of the work are Ahura Mazda's covenant on account of the sky, of the first 12 things created, of Mount Alborg, of the 12 signs of the zodiac, of the stars, of the soul, of the first practices adopted by the creatures of the evil spirit, Ahriman, of Ahriman's first breaking into the sky, of Ahriman's coming upon the primeval ox, of Ahriman's arrival in the fire, of Ahriman's coming upon Ge'omard, of the coming of Ahura Mazd, and Ahriman upon Ge'omard at the time of his creation, of the luster residing in both spirits, further account of the arrangement of the sky, another account of all the mountains, of depressions for water, of great and small rivers, of the 18 rivers of fresh water, of the 7 external and 7 internal liquids in the bodies of men, of the period of which water falling on the earth arrives at its destination, of the 3 spiritual rivers, of the star to Hestars destroying the noxious creatures which Ahriman had distributed over the earth, of the prophet Zarathustra asking the creator Ahura Mazd how long these noxious creatures will remain in the latter millenniums, of driving the poison of the noxious creatures out of the earth, of the divisions of the land, of the creator of Ahura Mazd's placing valiant stars as club bearers over the heads of the demons, of all the things produced by the passing away of the primeval ox, of the 282 species of beast and bird, of the bird named Kamras, of the bird named Karsapad, and the hollow of Vargumkard, of the birds who are enemies opposed to the demons and fiends, of the bitter and sweet plants among the 55 kinds of grain and 12 kinds of herbs, of the flowers of the 30 days, of the revolution of the sun and moon and stars, and how night falls and how the day becomes light, of the 7 regions of the earth, of depressions, of the creatures of the sea, of the flow and ebb of the tide, of the 3-legged donkey, of the Gahambars, of Rapithon, of the revolution of the seasons, of the production of mankind from the passing away of Ge'omard, of the clever production of offspring from the seed of man, of all fires of the clever work produced in the reign of King Jamshed, and the production of the ape and bear, of the production of the Abyssinian and Negro from Zohak, of the splendor and glory of King Jamshed, of the soul of Kersasp, of Kersap's soul being the first to rise, of the names of the prophet Zoroastrianism pedigree, of his going out in the world, of his children, of the orders given by Ahriman to the demons when the creator Ahura Mazd created the creatures, of the weeping and raging of the evil spirit Ahriman, of the weeping of the demon, of wrath in the presence of Ahriman when the prophet Zarathustra brought the religion of the computation of 12,000 years. And we see here something, right, that we don't see in the earliest stuff, this idea of national and hereditary supremacy, linked to a period when they were like not accepting converts, but all the prophets, they went about trying to get converts. They were like, oh, you're dark-skinned, or you're lighter-skinned, or you're of this other feature related to another race or even tribe or something, you know. The headings of the 13 chapters which form the second part are Account of the Last Millenniums, of the appearance of Hosadar Bami, of his going out in the world, of the appearance of Hosadar Ma, of As, of the 57 years of giving the light of the sun to men on the day of the resurrection, of the rising again of the whole mankind on that day of the resurrection, of the means of resurrection, of the annihilation of the evil spirit Ahriman, and the demons and fiends on the day of resurrection, of the Creator Ahriman's making the earth and sky one after the resurrection, of the proceedings of all creatures after the resurrection. The third part contains an abstract of the contents of the 100 chapters of the Sad Dar Bundahis, and concludes with an account of the ceremonial formula practiced when tying the kusti, or sacred thread girdle. And there's purpose to these narratives. There's also a connection to religious formulas, whether they're obvious or not.